after the Idaho game was the fact that I think you have athletes that can play. We certainly have those, but the ability to be able to make sideline adjustments is so critical in a ball game, and especially in these kind of situations where you don't know exactly what your opponent's going to do. And I think our players did a great job again, just like they did during the Wake Forest game, of taking sideline adjustments and also halftime adjustments, because we did have to make significant changes to some things. We're not quite as prepared for a few things that Idaho did. I was very impressed with their quarterback. I think he's going to be just a tremendous player, because he made some throws that were, for a freshman, redshirt freshman, but a freshman no less, that were very, very difficult throws. Very impressed with him. That's something we really hadn't prepared quite as much for, was a quarterback with that kind of accuracy. And it changed us a little bit. From an offensive perspective, we were dealing with a blitz structure almost every snap, and that had not been their norm. And that led to a little bit of non-rhythmic series, in the sense that it gets tough when they're blitzing like that to get into a lot of rhythm, although whenever you do hit a play, they tend to go for big plays. And that's kind of what happened in the game. We were able to, Oklahoma colloquialism, stay in the saddle and just kind of hold on until the play all of a sudden, had an opportunity to develop for us. And so I was pleased with that. And then I think lastly, I can't understate this probably. All the coaches probably across the country would agree with me on this. To see us have 2 game-winning drives, 2 games in a row, that's huge, because that kind of goes back to that refusal to lose. You find a way. You're committed to finding a way. I thought we were very much like that 2 years ago in particular, where we were going to find a way. And I think this team, and I talk a little bit about that season because I think this team can identify with that season. Most of these guys that are playing for us were a part of that football team. And so I'm encouraged by that. And obviously there's certainly enough work to be done out there on the practice field. We have a lot of corrections we still have to make, and we're still finding out some things about some of our younger players. But I am encouraged by kind of what has happened and where we're at. And now we need to continue, obviously, to move forward against a team this week that is just tremendously talented in LSU. And, they're big, they're powerful, they're physical. They have great speed at the skill positions. And Coach Miles has just done a tremendous job there. It's a difficult job. It's not a difficult job necessarily to win. It's a difficult job to win as successfully as he's won. And I don't know that people really truly understand how difficult sometimes those jobs are, because you have to win at such a high level. And his teams have done that. They've done it consistently. And obviously have had 2 really good wins, one over a ranked Wisconsin team, and then one over a very good FCS team in Sam Houston State, who's, who could give a lot of 1A teams a lot of problems. So it's been 2 really good wins for them. But we are anxious to go in and play. It's a tremendous venue, great fan base, obviously great facilities overall. I think their athletic budget's 10 times greater than ours. They have 5-star guys. We have 2-star guys. And so you can look at all the stuff that's out there and say, 32-point underdogs, I think, is what someone told me today. So, all that doesn't sound good, but, our guys, we've been in environments like this before, and we'll show up and we'll play. And that's all I can ask these guys to do. So, questions?
Coach, you talked about that 30-point underdog. That's really a role you guys have relished in the past, i.e. Arkansas, other ones. I mean, I think you guys love that challenge. Well,
I think that you're always anxious as a player, as a coach, as a human being, to have that, as you mentioned, relish that opportunity to overcome. When everybody says that it can't happen, is to try to make it happen. And it's a tall task. We're playing, again, in a hostile environment. We have some younger players that need to step up for us this week, and are players that are new to our program. And so I think we'll get a great effort from LSU. I know that's going to happen. And so we're going to have to play really, really great football. First of all, as in most games, you can't beat yourself. But I think the second part is, are you aggressive enough to try to go win games? And we know that there's some difficult matchups for us this week, and so we have to adjust accordingly. And our players have to handle those adjustments well in practice this week. But we have, this senior class, they've played Auburn and they've played Arkansas and Florida State and TCU and Iowa and Oklahoma, and you can go right down to Baylor. And so it's not like that they haven't been in these venues before. I don't think we're going to be intimidated by the venue. Now, the players, then we still have to play. But in terms of me being worried about, can we handle Tiger Stadium and the lights and all that other kind of stuff, I don't think we'll have a bunch of out-of-body experiences along those lines. No out-of-bodies.
That's the first one. How different Berryisms with different Oklahomaisms. But with going to LSU in week 3, you talk about all the different venues that your team has been in. It seems like every other year you've been here, those 3 so-called money games are lumped right there on top of each
Right.
other. And so being able to go into this type of game already having 2 wins and the way that you won, how will that become an advantage instead of, say 2 years ago where it's like Arkansas, Auburn, Baylor, you're already 2-0 going into the first.
Well, I think this is certainly the biggest challenge we've had. There's no question about that. I think sometimes, I don't know, it just kind of, we'll take the schedule however it kind of comes to us, and we'll play the schedule. As long as we have 12 games, then it's a good schedule. And so you've never heard me complain about who we have to play. These are just other opportunities. You mentioned Arkansas, Auburn, Baylor. Well, that kind of worked out to our advantage to some degree in the sense that we beat Arkansas, and then you had to validate the Arkansas win by going to Auburn and playing well, and which we did, and came close to winning that game, and then obviously you got Baylor on national television on Friday night. So that year it worked out really, really well. Now, a few years back, we kind of had that same little run with Auburn, LSU, and Arkansas kind of all lumped in there together, pretty close together. And that was a tough run, because, every time that you kind of started kind of feeling a little bit better, it just, you got throttled. And so I think every year is different, Tabby, I really do. And so, we'll play them how they come, and that's just kind of the way we are.
But being in this position of having some confidence, the players talked last, what day is it? The last game, Saturday, against Idaho, that they have so much confidence because of 2 game-winning drives to win, and being able to kind of feel good about themselves going into one of these games that, money games they call them, instead of starting the season with one and having gained some confidence and not going to get,
No, I would agree with that, and we've been able to play quite a few people too, and I think that that's critical, and not just in terms of evaluating your team, but getting more guys on the field, because if they know that they're going to play, then they tend to practice pretty well, and the more they practice well, the better they become, and so you have more talent to play with. Sometimes whenever you're playing, is what you mentioned, that Arkansas, Auburn, Baylor run, there wasn't a lot of guys that got to play in those games. And quite honestly, from a depth standpoint, it hurt us later in the season because there wasn't a break. And so as you lost some players to injury, you had players behind them that hadn't had significant playing time. And I think that does obviously impact your football team moving down the road if you don't stay completely healthy.
Hey, Todd, you talked a little bit about the blitz package and struggling with it the other night. You could sense the frustration when those guys were coming off the field with it. Obviously, you're going to see a package that has probably 4 times the speed as it relates to that.
Right.
Talk to me about the adjustments those guys up front are going to have to make. And you got a pretty experienced group, too.
We do have a pretty experienced group that have seen an awful lot of things. And you're right, the speed level this week is going to be greater. But we have had a chance to watch our opponent. And I'm sure Johnny Chavis, the defense coordinator down there, has done a wonderful job at all the places that he's been. And he'll, I'm sure, have a surprise for us. But at least we have some tip-offs in relation to, okay, this is the tip-off for this blitz. This is this. With Idaho, we had none of that. We hadn't seen those things from them before, and so everything was a unique deal that we hadn't had a chance to study for. And so, it will be more. They'll, I'm sure, bring some pressure this week, and then we need to be able to capitalize on the pressure as we did last week. I think we're 7th in the nation right now in explosion plays over 20 yards, and that a lot of that comes because of the fact that people not Wake Forest necessarily, but that Idaho decided to pressure us, and we popped off some big plays, and that tends to be what happens whenever you pressure.
Offensively, I guess it's their ground game that concerns you the most, and the biggest challenge to try to slow down.
Well, they've got exceptional athletes on the edges too, in terms of their receiving core, and their quarterback, especially in the last game, showed the abilities to be able to be very accurate down the field. But there's no question that they want to run the football, and they've got a massive offensive line, got great tailbacks. I think that Cam Cameron, their offense coordinator, has done a really nice job in terms of blending, I think, Coach Miles' philosophy in relation to this is who we're going to be, this is our identity, and yet mixing in some things that can kind of challenge you a little bit schematically. There's enough spread things, and there's a little bit of tempo now, and there's some other things now to where it's not just quite as much status quo as maybe what it once was. And but they're going to be a power running team, and so obviously the running game is something that we're committed to having to stop every week. We've got a high level commitment to stopping the run every week, and so this won't be anything new for our players.
We know about the popularity of LSU in the state, of course, in Northeast Louisiana. Do you look at this as an opportunity of more eyeballs on you, kind of
Sure.
an opportunity to showcase this program?
No, I mean, I think you're always looking for opportunities within the state to play in state. I mean, there's been seasons where, basically this is our third game in state, and then we'll obviously have a home game after that. Most time that take a whole season before we get 4 home games or 4 games in the state of Louisiana. But no, there's no question. This is appreciate them being willing to do this. I think that it's going to be interesting as we move down the road based off of Power 5 autonomy to some of the other things that are changing right now in college football. If these opportunities are going to remain open for all of us, but we'll obviously cross that road when it comes. But they have never shied away, as some other universities have, to playing us, and I appreciate that because this is a good opportunity for us.
And on the same lines, about the popularity of LSU, you went down there the first year you were here, and looking back at that article about and you having to sort of put it out there, do not wear purple and gold in the Grove whenever we're in home games. If you're wearing purple and gold,
right,
I'm going to say something to you. And I know that reflected back on, I think that article that we did, it was talking about winning changes things. And so going back to 4 years ago and seeing what y'all accomplished then, including that 2012 season, have you seen that you don't have to make those type of remarks during the Grove Walk, or just the support that's come from, okay, instead of supporting and going 3.5 hours to watch a game on Saturday, I can come here and watch a team who obviously has made some strides?
Well, I don't fault the LSU fans at all. I hope nobody took offense to it along those lines. I just think it's disrespectful to our team to be coming up and wanting to shake hands and with LSU or anybody else's, colors on. I just think that's disrespectful. Just like, if our people were doing the same thing down there at their place, it would. And so it wasn't about necessarily something that I had held a grudge with LSU on. It was just, I think that it was disrespectful of our people, and I, again, we're all on this journey together, right? And this journey requires an awful lot of things: building a team, changing a culture, and it's not just within the team itself; it's within kind of everything that happens. Changing the academic environment for that our players and the responsibility that they feel along those lines, being socially adept at being able to handle situations and instead of creating problems for your university. And I'm proud of our program for all of those kind of things. But yeah, when we walk through the Grove now, you're not seeing that. Now, whether that be because I had a tantrum, I don't know, and everybody's scared of me getting another tantrum, and I told everybody I was going to do it one time. You'd like to think that your own fan base would kind of police that a little bit too, and so maybe that is more a part of it than me throwing a tantrum.
So do you think part of it is the success of what y'all have been able to build here, and there's a lot more eyes on you than say 4 years ago when you finished with?
Yeah, I don't know that we can take complete credit for any of those kind of things, but I do think that there's probably some of that is the outcome of some of the other things that have been established. I would agree with that. I think across campus now, you don't see a lot of people sporting other colors. Mostly, almost everyone wears ULM things around campus. That used to not be the case. And I think pride in your university and what you're wearing, I think that's significant. I think it's significant to the overall demeanor of a university as a whole in relation to, their pride about kind of being at a place. There's certainly, as you walk around town, there's certainly much more ULM stuff than there was 4 or 5 years ago. Whether that's us or whether it's just out there, I don't know. I'd like to think that we had something to do with that.
Hey, Todd, talk to me about the development of your offense. While they took some strides this past week, talk to me about your quarterback and the strides. I still don't think you've gotten into your groove yet.
Well, I think, I would agree with that. I think that there's still some things that we're finding out. I think there's still some things that we're finding out about our players. The players are finding out about us because there are some new things, including Pete. One of the things that happens over a period of time, and this is quite honestly why I don't take a lot of transfers, I just take the right ones, hopefully, is that there's some institutional knowledge that's kind of built up over a period of time. As I kind of mentioned last week, the claw and why are they going up and down and playing an Indian song? Well, if you don't know any history, you don't know if that makes any sense. And I think there's an awful lot within even an offense itself. We've tried to go back and watch a lot of cut-ups with Pete of the past, and not trying to say you need to be Colton Browning, because I need him to be Pete Thomas. That's who I need him to be. I don't need him to be Colton Browning. But there is some experiences that Colton had that can only that the only way that he could gain it was to be around during that time frame, or to turn around and see it on video, because there's no way that I can prepare him for everything that he's possibly going to see. There's just no way. And that can happen over a growth time frame if you've been in a program long enough that even a Brayley Brown or Chaz Carrington, they can go back and, hey, you remember when we ran this against Tulane? And they'll go, oh, yeah. Well, Pete doesn't have that. And so there's still some of those things that we're kind of growing together, but he's really, really fun to work with. He's really cerebral. He studies the game. He works hard. And I tell you, again, not knowing this going into the first ball game, he has got tremendous poise. And this last week he proved that he has tremendous toughness, because even though we weren't sacked an awful lot, he was hit a ton. And sometimes that gets in a quarterback and they get a little happy feet and they let go of a ball too early. They do some of those other things. I like tough players. This game's about tough, right? It's one of the great lessons in life that football teaches, is about being tough and getting back up, right, and living in the now moment. And I thought he just did a great job of that, and I think there's no question that our team has got significant confidence in him, just for the simple fact that we've had 2 game-winning drives. Because a lot of that falls on the quarterback, and he can't take all the credit, but certainly their belief. A lot of times he can take credit for that, and that's been high.
Any other questions for Coach Berry?
Yeah, I have another one.
She did finish writing.
Sorry, it's gonna be difficult, but you talk a lot about, in the past, recent years, that the team who is the most healthy is usually the team, and the most mature is the team that wins the Sun Belt. And this, again, getting back to the way the schedule is and playing some of these money games, and they're being spread out a little bit. September,
right.
LSU, October, you go to Kentucky, November, go to A&M. And so do you enjoy the fact that they are spread out in an instance where there might be more susceptible to injuries because of, like you said, they're playing 5 stars and some of these big corn-fed guys in the offensive line? Or do you wish you just got them all out of the way real quick so that you could focus on conference, like say in November?
Well, I don't really care, and I really don't. I think that one of the more games that you play, the more chances there are for injury. Right. That's why I was against the 12th game. When they started that, I don't think that was a good thing for football. I can understand it in other sports. I can't understand it in ours. And I've been obviously very outspoken about some of these things because I do have a little bit of a national seat in relation to being on the board of trustees and some of those other kinds of things, the rules committee. And so getting back to kind of your question, I think that obviously in order to win your conference games, you'd like to stay as healthy as you can. If you're playing all of those games, all your out-of-conference games at the front end of your schedule, regardless of who they're against, you're more apt for injury before you go into conference games. And so it's nice to obviously be 1-0 in the conference right now, and because we're relatively healthy going into it. But, yeah, the blueprint for success is out there all over the place. It's not just in our conference. It's in almost every conference. If you're mature and you're healthy, you win. And or you have a better chance of winning. You know, you have talent and, you know, some kind of coaching acumen in relation to being able to accomplish something, but you have a better chance of winning. And so that's one of the keys for us. I think we do have some maturity on the team, and you know, we need to stay healthy through the course of this season. And if we don't, then other people have to step up, and that becomes a little bit more difficult.
All right, last question. You know, seeing some of these guys, and I feel like it's been brought up more and more the more that the different feats are reached. You know, the first winning season in FBS history for ULM in 2012, and starting 2-0 for the first time since '93. The Fieldhouse final, you know, going to break ground. You hear so many different players talk about how excited they are, and more excited than maybe when they committed because, you know, bigger schools like LSU didn't want them, but now they're like, I understand why I'm here, and I'm excited that I get to build something. You know, clearly all the fancy things and that comes from, you know, playing at LSU, which I'm sure a lot of the Louisiana-based kids, that was their first dream. And so for them, you know, the guys like Tyler Kane, who are juniors now and have been in the program for 3 years, do you hear a lot of those same type of comments, just talking about, you know, kind of, like you always say, building your own house?
Yeah, I'm very prideful of that, quite honestly, in the sense that, you know, I think that I've traveled around, right? I mean, anytime that you're getting Christmas cards from Atlas and United and National Van Lines every year, you know that you've maybe made too many moves. And that's part of our profession. And in those, I've been at programs where, quite honestly, it was very, very easy to win. It was hard to lose. And I've been in programs to where we had to build things to get to that point to where we could win. And I think that for our football team, and hopefully they're proud of this, I think they are. And, you know, I challenged all of them when we recruited them. I said, you know, I think people make places special. We don't have waterfalls in our locker room, and we don't have this and that and all that other kind of thing. But quite honestly, I don't know that makes anybody happy. It's cool, you know, but it's not going to make you happy. It's the people you're around that make you happy. And I think that also gives you that opportunity to kind of build that bond. But we've challenged all of our players with, do you want to go someplace to where it's already done? Or do you want to take pride in doing something for the first time? Do you want to do something and leave a legacy for everybody else to follow, that they can look back when they come back to their homecomings 20 years from now and say, you know, to a full Malone Stadium with some nice facilities and playing on television and all the other things that kind of come with success, and say, you know, I was a part of that. I was part of building that. Part of me is built into the place. I tell you, again, I've been a lot of different places, and, you know, I've been asked questions before in relation to why are you here or why are you there. I'm much more apt to want the challenge of doing something than the this is a really, really bad phrase to necessarily even say in this, because there's no coach that's relaxed. But again, there's places where you can relax a little bit and just say, you know, I don't really have to do all this because little Johnny over here is going to make a play. I don't have to call the perfect play because little Johnny's going to make the play. I'd rather be challenged, and I think I appreciate our players wanting to take that on and taking pride in the fact that some of these things are first, and there is a certain amount of satisfaction whenever somebody's told you over and over and over again that you can't do something, and you do it. You know, there's a reason to be prideful in that.